we're going to look on those Mexico cams and see what we can find, because I've noticed some interesting skies up there and lots of different reflections. We're seeing a lot of haze, a lot of chemtrailing. And again, the agencies around the world, NASA and other government program organisations, are noticing and keeping an eye on the solar activity up there, the radiation that's coming through. They are keeping an eye on a lot of things now. They're watching the sunrise and the sundown all the time because they're worried, and they know that billions of people are going to see Helion. They're going to see Nibiru. They're going to see the reflections, and they're going to be affected. The public, the mass media, the people on this earth are going to be all affected by the brown dwarf star, by its radiation, by the protons that head down towards our core of our earth that cause these huge earthquakes. We are seeing the evidence all around us now, aren't we? So let's now go to the Mexico cams and see what we can find for you. This is called the Puebla cam in Mexico, beautiful part of Mexico. And the time there is 6:57:17 seconds. I mean, it goes up. It's a live cam right now. And you can see that haze in the sky, that they still continue chemtrailing. Where I was over the weekend, it was smothered in chemtrails as well. That's flick through this cam. Okay, I'm having a few problems with this cam. I just want to show you this, okay? Now, if you look at the timestamp again at 6:46:04 seconds, that isn't the sun that's there above those chems and clouds. The sun hasn't risen yet on the horizon. You can see the amount of solar blasts that we're heading our way from the sun, the sol, through those corona holes. I mean, you can see this blast, can't you? I mean, we're getting blasted every day now, aren't we? Here's another image of this Mexico cam. Okay, 6:50:04 seconds. There's another object that's rising before the sun rises. I mean, you can clearly see those light sources that's cutting through those chems. I mean, I know again it looks spectacular, but the thing is, we're in deep trouble with this, aren't we? On this last image on this cam, you can see how clearly dark it is still. The sun is rising, and it's 9:56:04 seconds on this cam, and it's very, very dark. I've said this before, and also again, NASA is keeping a close eye on this now. It's been reported now. It's come out, so they are worried about this as well. They really are, and all other organisations around the world are very much worried about this incoming events. But still, again, we are putting the dark by this till the very end. So we really need to focus on all different cams around the world and focus on the work that we put through. This is a Latino cam, okay, and this again is pointing north on the Mexico cams. You can see this, can't you? Okay, timestamp is 3 and also 9:36:02 seconds. So again, you can see this blue object, can't you, just here? There is another blue celestial body that's shining through. Is this the Kachina? Because our sun has gone up and risen this end here. The thing is though, they're using technology to hide this all the time. You can see all these chems that's being broken up in the sky, is being burnt away. This natural cloud is being lowered down to our level now. And I mean, stretched across the sky, it's all chems. Look on the land, it's very, very dark. So here's an object that they don't want us to see, this blue reflection that we get in the skies every day now. Also on this cam as well, there's I mean, you can see this red reflection all across here. This is all from the system that's incoming now, the Nibiru system. I mean, the sun is glaring ever so much before sunrise, and you get this red reflection. Can you see this? All these trails that are left up there, and I believe to be HARP that's doing all this as well, that's covering and cloaking objects. They're cloaking it all the time, aren't they, on the Mexican cams? And I'm going to go to another cam now, so yeah, that's interesting to see that. And it's just also just searching different images to catch the right image, isn't it, all the time. This is a live Mexico image cam. This is live now. Santa Fe cam in Mexico, and look what they've done. Look what they've done in their skies. You can see those poisons up there that they're spraying to hide those huge objects that are incoming. Let's flip through this cam and see what we can find. Okay, you can see this on the screen. We've got this blue object. Okay, before sunrise you can see the sun that's about to rise through the screen there. Okay, and that thick line of chemtrails that they put out there every single early hours of the morning. It's always there. This thick blanket of chems as well, and you can see it starting to burn away. The natural clouds are being burnt away. But this object here, this blue object that rises in the sky before the sunrise, you can see this, can't you? Look at this. It's just a blue celestial light source in the skies. There's the sun and this object, this blue reflection. And I'm just going to keep watching this. Just watching this all the time. It's just very interesting to see that we're seeing different colours up there all the time now, aren't we? And the shape of this object as well. I mean, timestamp there is 7:10. We can see this blue light source now every day, can't we? Okay, we're getting the red colours from Nibiru that's coming up on sunrise. Okay, it's before the sunrise. Look at the timestamp, 6:32, 4 seconds. Now this was taken on the 10th, Saturday, and I want to show you this, okay? Let's just flip through the cam. Okay, let's get this cam sorted. You can see again that pink reflection. Okay, these strange clouds that keep coming and showing themselves as well. This is a pink reddish reflection from Nibiru. All this behind the chems is what we're going to see in the future. Our blue skies will disappear. There'll be no blue skies anymore. It would just be pink and red coloured skies. But again, government will say it's our fault, humanity's fault, because of trash and toxins in the skies, because of CFC gases and exhaust fume from cars and smoking, and humanity's to blame for this, but it's not. This is because of an incoming system, and we all know this. I mean, it's so evident that we're seeing all these different colours now in the skies. I mean, you can see this now, can't you? And then it darkens off. It gets darker. I apologise for the white screens, but you can see this, how it darkens off. Okay, the different colours are here now. This is the colours that we need to keep an eye on and look for. These pink, reddy skies before the sun rises. It's so important to see this now, because this is what's happening right now across the world. We're seeing this on the NASA cams. We're seeing this on other webcams around the world. We're even seeing it by ourselves. When you look at the sun going down in the evening sky, look behind you and you will see the pink skies rising. You will see those pink horizons. They're there. It's so evident that these heavenly bodies, they're just coming into our system now, aren't they? These reflections are getting much stronger. It's the red-pink reflections that we've never seen before. Here's another cam. It's called the El Dorito cam, and this again is in Mexico. And look at the sky here. It's not red, is it? It's blue. We're seeing this blue reflection. Okay, now just to the left of the screen. Now this is a live cam, a video live stream cam. Okay, not a still photo or every 5-second photo image. Now to the left hand side you can see that red reflection, but look at the blue flare. This is not the sun. It's not coming from the sun. This is coming from the Kachina that's out there now in our inner solar system. It's reflecting off our moon, and it's reflecting off the sun. It's reflecting, and it will cause a blue array reflection on the morning skies, the evening sundown. We will see this. So it's just keeping an eye on the cams, because news media will not give out the true information of what's going on in our skies. NASA will not say a word. We're all looking at the skies now, aren't we? There's scientists around the world that are panicking about this. They know. They've seen it. They're just monitoring it right now. The Vatican, they are watching this now with that Lucifer telescope. They're seeing this. But people still believe the news media, and as long as the news media don't say anything and just think that the skies are just normally fine, they will just press on to their jobs and their carry-ons and just carry on their away in their businesses. So again, it's just very evident. I'm going to go to another cam now. Okay, I'm going to go through this piece of footage on this Mexico cam, okay? You've got the time there at 6:26:04 seconds. And this was on the 10th, but it's like the disco ball that we've seen up there in the stars. Okay, now this object is coming in with all sorts of different colours and reflections. It's huge, and it is here right now in our system, very close to us. Earth, the celestial body that we walk upon and live on. I want to show you this, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press a time lapse on this on a slow speed so you can see those different colours that we've never seen ever before in our lives. We've only seen the sunrise, okay, and the moon that's orbiting our Earth. We have never seen these colours before. Only for the past 3 years we've been starting to see these strange clouds and these chemtrailing and also these colours that are coming in. So I apologise if you see any white screens on this image, but I'll try my best to flick through this cam. Can you see that red reflection to the right hand side? And also this, I'll go back in a second and show you this in a second, but you can see these different colours that's been reported by the Mexicans on the subscribers that send me emails in. They see these blue reflections and these red reflections all the time. I mean, look at this. It's so evident now, isn't it, that there's something out there in our solar system that's reflecting on our skies now. I mean, look at it. Look how blue these reflections are, and look how red the horizon is, where we've got the binary twin. The Death Star is here on the horizon, and you can see those reflections. I apologise again for them white screens. Let's go back to an image and zoom in. Okay, I've just stopped this, okay? Now, first of all, I want to show you this, okay? I mean, we've seen this before, and I've seen it with my own eyes last year, going down on the horizon. It's the same object, okay? Now, here it is. This is the object that's causing all this colouring, strange colourings in the sky, okay? And it's being chemtrailed. The thing is, it's going down on the horizon. This is a celestial body. Can you see this? Here it is again, it's just going down on the horizon. It's gone down on the horizon now. I mean, look at all this. Look at this. Here it is again. Hold on a second, I'll just... it's here. This is the object that's here, that's going down on the horizon. You can see the celestial body, the moon, but this object is huge. And I believe it's still far away, but it's huge. It's about the same size as Jupiter, maybe bigger, but it's a large object that's incoming. It's bringing so much trash in with it as well. We're seeing a lot of trash out coming from the inner solar system now that's been carried billions and billions of miles long, just full of comets and all sorts of debris. Just has to, we all have to acknowledge this now. Okay, this is another known Mexico cam as well, visited quite a few times. It's called the Acapulco Marina cam, and again you can see this huge blue light source that's nothing to do with our sun. This is the Kachina. I mean, here is this yellow light source that's coming from another heavenly body. It's not our sun. Now you'll see a blue light source to the left hand other side of the screen. Can you see this lighting up here? It starts lighting up here on the left hand side. Can you see this? It's lighting up the sky blue. All of it. Two separate light sources again. The red reflection and the blue reflection. And it's got a lot bigger. A lot bigger now. There's something behind those chems right out there in space, and it's reflecting. Can you see this? Look at the timestamp. These are images haven't been doctored at all. These are genuine images from the Mexico cams. You can see this blue light source. Here it is. We're going to see this. It's every single day on these cams because they're seeing their skies changing now. Now, this is the Western Hemisphere, Mexico, and again, we are in the Northern Hemisphere here in the UK, and you, all kind subscribers around the world, and in different hemispheres as well. So you're looking at different images up there in the skies. You're looking at the different colours as well up there in the skies, and we all need to stick together to keep each other informed with this because it's so important to carry on and catch the evidence. This again is a live cam, okay? Now this is the Popocatépetl cam, and this is in Americana in Mexico, okay? Now you can see again those lower cams. They are trying to cool down the volcanoes. They are trying their hardest now to cool down those volcanoes because they are becoming active. All across the world we've got those large volcanoes, and because of these solar flares heading down towards our Earth core, causing these earthquakes, these volcanoes are heating up. They really are genuinely heating up. So it's just keeping an eye on the whole situation, isn't it? I'm going to show you some earthquake information now. There was one here that hit a magnitude 5.2 earthquake in Lagunville on the 10th of June, just yesterday at 5:19. Now, people would have felt that. And also, at 5.2, people are starting to see that these earthquake magnitudes are getting much bigger now, aren't they? They're climbing. Because our space weather is causing these huge problems. Nibiru and Helion are getting very close, causing the Earth to start its pole shift. We're slowly slipping. We really are slipping now. Let's go to another earthquake chart. A magnitude 5.6 earthquake that hit New Zealand, again the 10th at 6:42. Now, when they start getting and climbing much bigger, like this one that's on the diagram here, you can see that's out into the Otago area, in the ocean area. These can cause a huge tsunami wave. Now, it's getting quite dangerous now, isn't it? Because Earth is on thin ice right now, because also the sea levels and the ocean levels are rising, because we've got that sun that's burning our north and south pole now with these flares, and they're just, the earthquakes are starting to become active all over the place, in very unusual places that haven't been in the usual places. So that's, keep going and show you another earthquake detail. This is another one, a magnitude 5.2 that hit on the 9th of June 2149, and this is an area called Jan Mayen. And also, before I looked on the charts, only a couple of weeks ago they were only getting 2.5s and 1.6s, and now it's a 5.2. So yeah, things are looking stranger. The charts are climbing, aren't they? They are always climbing now. Here's another one of magnitude 5.2 earthquake, and this is in the Philippines. Now, I know the Philippines get affected quite a lot with earthquakes. Now, this was dated back on the 9th of June at 1:58. But again, a 5.2 is climbing. Now, before you would see a 3.6 and 4.1s, but now it's a 5.2. So the earthquake chart is showing the truth. And again, a 5 is a 6. They don't want the public to know this. So, I mean, everywhere it's becoming much stranger now, and those sea levels are rising. I'm having emails from many parts of the world saying they've noticed that the sea levels have risen. They've noticed the rising levels. So, yeah, very interesting. Here's a magnitude 5.6 earthquake. This is 392 kilometers from Garapan, and this is in the Northern Marino Islands, 9th, just a few days ago, near Taiwan. There's a large quake. Now, they are, as again, they get affected by these, and I believe another one will come, a big strike will come, because they had problems in the past. They lost billions and billions of pounds with damage. I mean, they still have lost, and still building to this day. And they, again, we need to wake a lot of people up with this, because Hellion is out there causing problems. The destroyer is coming in, and their news media have been told to say nothing. The whole world of news media and governments have been told to say nothing right to the very end, because there's nothing we can do. They can't just turn these celestial objects another way to leave us alone for another 3,600 years. They can't do this. So the only way to do this is just let us carry on until the very end. So yeah, another earthquake. Here also, and I go on about the Solomon Islands quite a lot, because they do get affected by earthquakes, but it's only a few days ago, 9th of June 2132 timestamp, and this magnitude, it's 5.2. Now, only a few months ago they were only getting 2.4s, and I showed you this on a video before. So things are climbing, things are changing, and we will see earthquakes. We will feel them here in the UK, and they will feel them in the USA. Australia have had some hard kicks of earthquakes as well, and they will feel more. All over the world, Europe, Iceland, right to the Far East, and Russia, we'll all feel these earthquakes, and again, we will see the changes in the skies. We will see them red. Instead of blue, they will be red. It'd be like living on Mars. It really will, because the heat, the temperature, the carbon dioxide, everything will change. It really will. There's going to be some real serious changes on our Earth, and I just pray for every single one of us to prep for this situation, because we're starting to see those differences now, aren't we? Okay, these are subscribers' images. Okay, this is again from Padilla, fantastic subscriber, and she's looking at this. You can see those chems, can't you? Those strange clouds, and I said this on the video yesterday when I was away. You can see these strange markings on these chems as well, because the Earth's atmosphere is being affected by the Nibiru system's atmosphere, the Earth and their magnetic pull as well. You can see on the screen just to the right hand side, that is lens flare. We see this every day, but you can see that again the sun has changed its colour, and again the land is dark. So thank you, Padilla, for sending this in. Fantastic image. Okay, this is a spectacular image. Okay, you've got 4 objects. Now, you might not be able to see clearly on this screen, but I'm going to zoom into this objects. Okay, you'll see 4 of them. Now, is this the system that's coming in? Because it's in the right area. It's in the right area. Are these the moons or these asteroids? Now, it's difficult to say, isn't it? So I'm going to zoom in on this. Was taken on the 7th, okay, of this month at 10:03, and it was also taken in the USA, and it was northeast. I want to show you this, okay? Okay, I'm hoping you can see this, but you can see here there's 1, 2, 3, 4 objects that are with each other, and these objects are out there in the solar system. This is not the moon or any other solar object that we are known of. These could be huge objects of meteorites or asteroids that are heading close past our Earth, and NASA will not say a word. They will not warn the public. They didn't warn the public of the Russian asteroid either, did they? I mean, let me zoom in a bit more. Okay, I've zoomed in slightly more, but you can see that clearly on the screen, can't you? And again, taken on the 7th day of June 2017. So thank you, Ron, for sending this in. And he is persistent, just like all of you. We're all persistent to keep scanning those skies. Here's an image that was taken just before the image that was taken, you can see on the screen on the last video. Okay, now changes colour. Now this is travelling with the moon 100%. This huge colouring. Now we see these pink and red reflections above those chem clouds and cloud systems, don't we, all the time? And it's evident that we've got these other bodies that are out there. So again, it's just focusing and knowing that these objects and colours are here. So just be aware of the skies when the sun goes down. Look on the opposite side. You will see these strange purple, red, pink reflections all the time. It's the incoming system. It really is. Okay, this is another spectacular image, okay, that's coming. And again, Ron, thank you. But there's something out there, isn't there? Something very strange out there. So again, I'm going to just zoom in. I apologise about that. I couldn't zoom in for some reason on that image. It just got smaller. Now, again, you can see this image quite clearly, can't you? Now this is the moon, and you've got that blue object just below it, that blue haze, this blue light source that's coming through, that's being reflected all over the horizons right now. So anyway, I'm going to go, so I'll be back shortly. But thank you again for following the channel, and respect to all of you for continuing the hard work that you're doing, because we're all a community and we need to just stand together and just carry on as we just keep checking through the evidence of what's going on. I'm going to check NASA cams, I'm going to check other webcams around the world and show you more subscribers' images. So again, take care, respect to all of you from Matt Rogers.
It means it is a very, very famous but also very, very old symbol, and this is the only existing really pyramid with the eye. It has exactly 13 steps, like the pyramid on the $1. The strange thing with this one and other artifacts found in Ecuador, that if you put black light on it, the eye shines really very, very strong. And the natural color is kind of light green and gray. And the most impressive for me was that on the bottom of the pyramid, you have here in gold inlays the Orion constellation and an unknown writing. This unknown writing we found on stones all over the world. In Ecuador, in Colombia, in Illinois, in Gloucester, France, in Calabria, Italy, in Turkmenistan, in Malta, and Rex Gilroy has some pictures on his website, and I found out that some of the stones he shows with unknown writing presents the same writing. That means there must have existed a global civilization long, long time ago. And there was only one man able to translate this language, Professor Kurt Schildmann. He was the president of the German Linguistic Association. He spoke and wrote more than 40 languages perfect, and he could translate this writing, and he called it pre-Sanskrit because it's older than the oldest writing. And the translation of these 4 letters on the bottom of the pyramid.
Guys, this image was the last one that we got from Hubble, and it was on the video a few weeks ago. And they did an overlay of 3 images to get this coloration that you see in here. They used blue, red, and I think the black and white filter, took the shots and overlaid them, and we came out and they said it was a smooth image. And the video that I did where we were watching the meeting, if you remember, of the different astronomers and scientists at the IC meeting, the Comet I-Sun meeting, and one of the guys at the end said that the jets were irregular. They were not, they were at a distinct angle from the sun. Well, and again, I was complaining that if they were getting shots every 15 minutes of Hubble, from Hubble, why aren't we getting more? Well, what I wanted to do was find the images that they used to make this composite. Now, when they overlaid this, they smoothed a lot of edges out. Was that the purpose? To make it look like one object, guys? Is that what they're doing? I want to dig a little deeper here. Now, I found the 3 images that they used to make this picture, and now I think I know why. I'm going to pull this over. This is the black and white one. This is from the red filter and the green filter here. I'm going to pull this black and white up, guys. Just hang in there a minute. See what we got. Now, without the overlay and what they've added in, you can see what's inside this comet, or inside this coma haze here. You have three objects. And this is not an object behind these two. You see how this cloud is irregular. This will not be happening. Now, this is what's called the Hubble Web Viewer, and I'm going to put it up after I load the video. You can't put links in the description until after the video is loaded, so sometimes it takes about 10 minutes to get that information under it. But this is called the ISIN Web Viewer, or Web Image Viewer, and you notice the numbers here. As you move your cursor around, it gives you where you're at. You see that? Now, it also has what's called invert, darker, and lighter. You notice how they've got it real bright. Now, this is the released image here, and at this sun, this star appears to be having a solar flare or coronal mass ejection out the side. But let's try to get it. Let's just darken this thing a couple times, and again, I'm going to link this. You notice that it's starting to clear up. It was overexposed, the one that was released. Here's ISIN. Here's your coronal mass ejection. That's what's inside that coma. Now, that looks like a comet. This I don't know, but again, it's part of this cloud. We'll pull it up. You can also zoom, and it will zoom very big. One more time. Now let's go to light, and let's blur it out the way that it was when you go to the page. As we lighten it up, it's just increasing your exposure time, basically. Watch what happens to it. You still see that oblong shape inside that coma? There's about the way we get it. Now we're going to go back dark. Right there. Now remember that one scientist said some of the jets are not pointed right. Is that what we're looking at here, guys? Something's just not right. I would say this was some kind of marker or something if it was not for this cloud. Pull it up. Let's look at it close. This is the real image of what's inside that cloud. I'm going to go darker.
Hello, I'm John Coleman, and the name of this presentation is There Is No Significant Global Warming. And I'm the guy that is just doggone sure of that. Now, you may think that I'm just a paid-off shill, big oil, or something of that sort. No. They've never given me a nickel. I'm a television weathercaster with 60 years' experience, a meteorologist. I was the first weatherman on Good Morning America. I'm the man who founded the Weather Channel, and this is my accomplishment. Broadcast Meteorologist of the Year from the American Meteorological Society, of which I was a professional member for many years. I finally quit the AMS when it became very clear to me that the politics had gotten in the way of the science, and it was time to talk about something else. Now, did we have a winter or what in 2013-14? Oh, man, did we ever. When I called for my brother in Ohio, his wife said he wasn't coming in from shoveling the snow to talk to some guy in California. Oh, man, how could you tout global warming when it was the coldest, snowiest, bitterest winter in 30 years, which it was across the United States? And it would take a lot of gall to put out a statement, as our NOAA, the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Agency, did, claiming that it was 2013 was the warmest year. I mean, it's sheer silliness. It is manipulation of the data. Now look, let's get something clear right from the beginning. I love this planet Earth. I've been a citizen of this earth now for darn near 80 years, and it's all I got. If I thought that we, mankind, were damaging this beautiful little sphere, this blue marble on which we live, I would be terrified and give every ounce of energy I had to stop what we were doing. But I have studied the issues of so-called global warming, or now they call it climate change since the warming has stopped. I have studied the issues carefully and completely as a good scientist can, and reached an absolute firm conclusion that there is no global warming. Now this Earth, it's spinning around the sun at 17,000 miles per hour. It is traveling with the sun in our little spiral off the Milky Way galaxy at over 100,000 miles an hour. And that galaxy is flying out in the universe as the Big Bang continues to expand the universe. And we are all traveling very, very fast. And what a ride. The Earth has been traveling for 4.5 billion years. And as best I can tell, it's going to stay just fine for another 4 billion years. But wait a minute. During that period, we have had ice ages, and we have had interglacial periods, and we're going to continue to have those natural variations in climate. But man-made climate change, I'm sure it's not going to happen. That's why I sent out this tweet today. This tweet went out to Al Gore. It went out to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change of the United Nations, to the Sierra Club, to the Democratic Party National Committee. And what it said is, where is your so-called global warming? Because if you chart the temperatures, you can go back into the 70s and come up to today, and there's almost no warming. I mean, less than 1 degree warming since 1978, and absolutely no warming since 1998. What kind of deal is that? Well, I'll tell you what kind of deal it is. It's the kind of deal that's full of silliness if you're promoting climate change and global warming. We are in one of the most stable and beautiful periods of Earth's climate you could hope for. And look at the stark contrast between the spaghetti of the many models of atmospheric warming created by various people who have gotten tens of millions of dollars of federal grant money and worked for the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, and there's the average of all their models. And then here's the real temperatures as measured both on Earth and with our satellites. And folks, it's just not happening. That's why I posted on Facebook this memo today to the scientists and organizations that take that $4.7 billion a year of tax money to continue your so-called global warming research. And I say to them, it's bad science. Ladies and gentlemen, please cease and desist the global warming and climate change scare campaign. It's harmful to the continued advancement of our civilization. The government actions to counter so-called carbon pollution have already raised the cost of fuel, electricity, and food by an average of $1,000 a year for the average American family of 4. And the $4.7 billion of our tax money a year being issued to you and your organizations is funding a wide range of meaningless studies based on this bad science that says that carbon dioxide radiative forcing is causing warming. That money could be productively spent on energy research, including graphene and thorium and other new energy sources. Your manipulated climate computer models have dramatically failed both in temperature predictions and their predicted warming signatures. Please admit your errors. It's time to put principle and that above personal wealth and status and help restore basic scientific principles to climate research. So I posted the memo and I sent the tweet. But you know, I know that you are highly skeptical of what I'm saying. How can you believe me when you see this constant stream of global warming news reports day after day, year after year, printed on the internet sites, and all the newspapers? They still print with ink on paper and roll it up and throw it in your driveway and send it in a magazine. And it's full of this stuff. I mean, it's just full of it. Even our government, our National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Agency of the federal government, has established websites to promote climate change. And of course, the New York Times, it's been leading that all along. And that's the power of money. That $4.7 billion a year is buying all of this bogus research that is leading to all of these bogus reports. So let me just give you the hard, cold facts. I showed you this when I tweeted it. There isn't any warming going on. There hasn't been. Nothing significant is happening. Oh, we have extreme natural variations in temperature. That's a hard, cold fact. But this recent warming, it's no different than the warming that has occurred many times before naturally. We had a medieval optimum when the Roman Empire flourished, and we had the little ice age when times were very tough. This little warming we have now, gosh, that's no big deal. That's just no big deal. Now, you want to talk about big deals. This is a hard, cold fact. From the ice cores, we have determined that we have vacillated on Earth between extreme ice ages and these beautiful interglacial periods of warming weather. And we live in the most recent of these interglacial periods. We've been in it for 12,000 years. Probably have another 10, 12,000 years to go before the next ice age comes on naturally. And can we cope with that? Now, you hear about the ice melting at the North Pole. What ice melted at the North Pole? Well, it got pretty low in 2007, but this is the last bunch of years since we've had satellite observation. We've had it for about 35 years. And here's where the ice is now, and it's no big deal. And those polar bears, there are more polar bears living today than have been alive any time since we've been counting them. And they are living all around the North Pole in 19 populations. They're doing just fine. That's a hard, cold fact. How about the South Pole? Well, our South Pole, is, as I record this, is in summertime, so the ice melt is near the peak for the season, but you'll notice more ice there than above average. It's near an all-time high. Oh, but the water is rising along the coast. Oh, is that right? Well, it's rising at the rate of about 6 inches per 100 years as part of this interglacial period. I mean, when the North America was covered in a 400-foot thick ice core at the end of the last ice age, the oceans were low, and then as that ice melted, of course, the oceans have risen, but that rise has been gentle and is not important. And then, superstorms. We didn't have a hurricane hit the U.S. in 2013. The year before, only a meager effort. And that so-called Superstorm Sandy, it was no big deal as hurricanes go. Didn't compare with Katrina, didn't compare with Andrew, and neither of those compared with the Galveston hurricane of 1900, long before man had any influence on climate. Oh, but tornadoes. How about those tornadoes? Well, here's the chart of tornadoes. Strong tornadoes have been diminishing. I mean, we now have so many good radars, and everybody's taking pictures with their phone. We see every tornado, it seems, that forms. But folks, there are fewer and less strong. Oh, and drought. Well, we had a big drought in Texas. It vanished. Now we have a big drought in California, getting a lot of publicity. If you look at the records, California falls into drought about once every 11, 12 years. And then we get an El Nino, and California gets the rain, comes out of the drought. I mean, we got 40 million people living in a desert. Of course they're going to have a water problem. So what? It's natural. It's not man-made. And it comes and it goes. It takes care of itself. Heat waves? What heat waves? We haven't had a killer heat wave since the 50s. So I've plotted all these hard, cold facts and presented them to you. And then I compare them to what you read in the press, what you hear on the air, what the networks tout. And you say, man, what a difference between reality and what's there. Does Coleman know his reality? You bet I do, folks. I study it every day. But how did this strange, bad science, how did this global warming, climate change, this crisis, how did it get started? Well, that's the story I'm going to tell you today. And that story begins with this great scientist, a man named Roger Revelle, who was a graduate of the University of California, Berkeley, in oceanography, who then served in the Navy during World War II, then became the director of the Scripps Institution of Oceanography, and who led research on the environmental impact of the atomic test on those atolls out in the Pacific following World War II, both atmospheric and ocean impact. And as that was coming to an end, he had greatly grown the Scripps Oceanographic Institution from an isolated small organization to a huge professional organization with many ships and hundreds of employees. It became clear he had to have something new to work on. And that's when he decided that something had to give. So he hired this man, Hans Suess, a professor from the University of Chicago who had done studies on the effect of carbon in the atmosphere. And Revell thought maybe there was something to that. So he and Suess did a research paper, and they put it out, in which they asked the question, is mankind's burning of fossil fuels to the coal in our stokers that were heating our homes, the oil in our cars, the fuel, old-fashioned gasoline in old-fashioned cars, was all of that creating a climate issue? And this was the 1950s, folks, and the world was pretty well caught in a smog. I remember it as a boy. Most of you are probably too young to remember, but I got to tell you, you choked in the smog that hung over your towns during the winter months when all those coal-burning stokers were going, and the cars were just spewing out ash, and it was ugly because we were burning old-fashioned untreated fuels in old-fashioned cars. Well, that was the beginning. That paper that Suess and Revell put out is actually the paper that started the global warming frenzy. Oh man, did they start something. And Revell then, he became a powerful man as a basis of that. His science was used all over the world by other scientists. And he started campaigning to establish a campus of the University of California co-located with his Scripps Oceanographic Institution at La Jolla, California. That was a big darn deal. Well, guess what happened? It was located there, but something happened. Revell suffered the greatest defeat of his life. He had campaigned to get that university there and thought he would be its first chancellor, but the politics backfired on him, and he wasn't named chancellor of that university, and he was hurt. So what did he do? He suddenly made a big move. He changed the only science class Al Gore ever took. Revell didn't remember having him in class. But Al Gore, who got a D in the course, was highly impressed. He was the son of a politician out of Tennessee, and he used what he learned there to start his global warming campaign. He wrote a book called Earth in the Balance. He ran for the U.S. Senate. He claimed that the Earth was being challenged by our burning of fossil fuels, and it got him elected to the U.S. Senate. And there in the Senate, he conducted hearings, bringing in scientists and spreading the scare of global warming. And that's when the money began to flow from the government to research. And this was the booby trap. Because once billions of dollars of government funding was going out to these organizations at universities and research groups across the nation, and they had to back that global warming claim that Al Gore was promoting with their research, the research began to pile up. And if you were a young scientist, you didn't have a choice. You couldn't put out a research paper that said, oh, what warming? You'd be out of a job. You'd lose your job, your car, your family. You'd be walking on the streets. No, you had to support it. Al Gore had taken Revell and Suess's research paper and used it to start the global warming campaign. And what did Al Gore say? He said, this is Roger Revell. He was my mentor. He's my hero. He's the man who spread the alarm. Well, there was another man that picked that up, this man, Maurice Strong. Maurice had become a bureaucrat at the United Nations, and in 1972 he had a conference in Stockholm on the environment, and his whole goal was one world government. And he used the impetus of that global warming scare at that Stockholm conference to start the initiative that set up the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. So now we had the U.S. government and the United Nations both promoting climate change, and it all came from that Revell Seuss paper and the research that followed and the dollars that were now flowing, and man, it was underway big time. So the IPCC, it had scientists and bureaucrats and politicians from throughout the world. It had the World Wildlife Federation, the Sierra Club, all the environmentalists, and they all got together and they voted that global warming was for real. Well, I got to tell you something. You don't settle science by a vote. It's not a political issue. It's not a vote. It's science. But never mind. They put out their reports, and they spent a lot of time telling us how we were destroying planet Earth. And they had fancy meetings in tropical locations throughout the world. And the scientists who supported global warming got the paid vacation trips to these big meetings and got to write these books and have their names and their careers. And man, it was a big deal. And what did Al Gore do? Well, he wrote a second book about global warming called An Inconvenient Truth. And we all know what became of that. His liberal friends in Hollywood turned that into a documentary, a sci-fi documentary, I might add, all about global warming. And they voted themselves an Oscar, Best Documentary Film of the Year in 2007. And then they turned around and Al Gore stood behind the IPCC president and they got the Nobel Peace Prize, all for scaring us about global warming. So Gore's movie, An Inconvenient Truth, became an absolute mainstay in American schools. How many times did you see it when you were going to school? Over and over and over again. And the global warming frenzy had truly reached its peak when all of that happened. Well, what happened with this man, Roger Revell, who had started it all, the great scientist? Well, he had kind of lost interest in this population study center at Harvard and missed San Diego, I guess, and the beautiful Southern California climate. And he swallowed hard for his defeat there, and he came back to the University of California, San Diego as a professor. And there he wrote these letters, and I want you to look at them. The first one goes from his desk to U.S. Congressman Tim Wirth. Quote, "We should be careful not to arouse too much alarm about the rate and amount of warming before it comes clear." And he wrote another letter here to Congressman Tim Bates. "Most scientists familiar with the subject are not yet willing to bet the climate this year is the result of greenhouse warming. As you very well know, climate is highly variable year to year. The causes of these variations are not at all well understood. My own personal belief is that we should wait another 10 to 20 years to really be convinced that the greenhouse is going to be important for human beings in both positive and negative ways." So there it was. The man who had started the global warming campaign had put up the flag of warning. Hey folks, this may not be for real. Caution, caution. Well, he even wrote an article that was published in a new science magazine called Cosmos. And he teamed with a professor, Fred Singer, to write that article. And that article was called What to Do About Greenhouse Warming, Look Before You Leap. And the article concluded, and I quote, "The scientific basis for a greenhouse warming is too uncertain to justify drastic action at this time." Wow. The man who had started it? Well, how did Al Gore react to that? Well, he said, "I've made up my mind. Revell is now senile. Pay no attention to that. The debate is over." And you've been hearing that now for 20 years. Al Gore won't debate anybody, and he claims it's for real. Well, we lost Roger Revell. The fight had to go on without him. He passed away of a heart attack in 1991. And after he died, his family joined with the people at Scripps to make him the father of global warming. They rejected his denialism, and so did the UNIPCC. But Dr. Singer, he was made to be the scapegoat for it all. They said he had caused it. Well, I finally was able to interview Dr. Singer about this controversy. He joins us live from Washington, D.C. Dr. Singer, what was Roger Revell's view of carbon dioxide as a greenhouse gas when you co-authored that Cosmos article back in 1990?
He was very relaxed about it. He basically looked at this as a grand geophysical experiment. After he and his collaborators like David Keeling found that CO2 was in fact increasing in the atmosphere, he and his colleagues were wondering if it would have any impact on climate. He wasn't about to make any judgment on the matter until the data were in. Of course, at that time, by 1990, we had about more than 10 years worth of satellite data, and the satellites didn't show any appreciable warming. And this is what actually set off my own thinking on the matter. I wondered what was going on. After all, carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas. It's increasing. There's no question about that. Where is the warming? Well, it turns out that the atmosphere is much more complicated than the climate models believe, and the warming is offset probably by a kind of negative feedback that comes from clouds and water vapor in the atmosphere.
Well, are you saying that back in 1990 that Revell was somewhat regretful of the excitement that he had caused about global warming?
Revell, at that time, had written some letters to his congressman and also to Senator Worth, telling him to calm down, not get excited about it, but wait and see what would happen to the climate. In other words, he was telling him, don't assume that things are going to warm up just because the models say so. Revell actually was very skeptical of climate models, much more so than I was. I was always more optimistic, hoping that they would improve enough so that they could really simulate what's going on in the atmosphere. Revell had not much faith in models.
Well, since that time, many people have said that you were the one who manipulated Revell, that you kind of calmed him down or changed his feelings in the way you put that article together, that Gore said he was a senile old man when you co-authored that paper, and that therefore you took your position on CO2 and more or less assigned it to Revell, and they put a lot of blame on you.
Well, that's absolutely untrue. First of all, if you knew Revell, you would know that he was sharp to the very, very end, and you could not change his mind. I mean, he knew what he was doing all the time. And furthermore, we have written proof. We have the letters he wrote to his congressman and to his senator. We also have an interview in Omni magazine. So there's plenty of evidence to show that he was quite independent-minded and that he didn't believe in global warming until the data would show him a warming. And by 1990, they really weren't. That is, the satellite data were not showing a warming.
Did you and Revell talk about Gore at all?
Actually, no, we never did, come to think of it. We only discussed the science. Revell's politics was very different from mine. He was, I think, a supporter of Gore. He was a liberal Democrat by inclination, and I think in every other way. But when it came to science, we completely agreed.
Interview that I had with Dr. Singer. Now, he's not the only scientist, please understand this, who questions this global warming frenzy, this climate change scare. In fact, there are 9,000 PhDs that have signed a petition denying that CO2 is causing global warming. There's 31,000 scientists in total who have signed that petition. There is a whole organization of them. A huge group from NASA recently wrote to the United Nations and to the U.S. At the Scripps Institution of Oceanography. Al Gore was a hero, and they proved it. They gave him the first Roger Revell Award.
Honored tonight at Scripps Institution of Oceanography, he was given an award in recognition of his environmental work. KUSI's Tom Jordan is live in La Jolla with more on that. Tom?
Paul, Al Gore was the first ever recipient of the Roger Revelle Prize here at Scripps Institution of Oceanography, honored tonight for his work in environmental preservation. A rousing welcome for a man continuing his campaign on environmental awareness and protection. Former Vice President Al Gore being honored for his efforts with the first ever Roger Revelle Prize.
I want to express my very deep and genuine gratitude for this honor.
The award presented at this dinner marking the 100th birthday of the late Roger Revelle, who headed Scripps Institution of Oceanography from 1950 to 1964. Gore studied under Revelle at Harvard University in the 1960s and credits him for igniting his passion on the environment.
As a former student, still a student, trying to learn, but still inspired by a great teacher who was a great scientist and a great man.
Roger Revelle's work back in the 1960s was at the time considered revolutionary. Today, many scientists consider that work almost prophetic.
And at that time, they wrote a short report, and we were told it was a very short report, saying that climate change is becoming an issue, the Earth is heating up, and therefore something needs to be done about that.
Al Gore says he was deeply moved by Revelle's early work. He, now considered at the forefront of the global warming movement, a Nobel Peace Prize winner, an Oscar-winning documentarian, all from his work on the environment. Now he adds a new distinguished and personal honor to that list.
I am deeply, deeply grateful.
And tonight's celebration was part of 3 days of celebrating the life of Roger Revelle. Roger Revelle would have been 100 years old tomorrow. We are live in La Jolla. I'm Tom Jordan, KUSI News.
Thanks, Tom. John Coleman believes there is no significant man-made global warming, and he travels the nation speaking on the topic.
John has some insights now on Roger Revelle's scientific research and the effect that it had on Al Gore. John?
Well, Revelle was a powerful man, a noteworthy scientist, and a significant force here in San Diego in the 1950s. There's no doubt that he's largely responsible for the high status of the Scripps Institute of Oceanography in its field, and for locating the University of California at San Diego, UCSD, at La Jolla. While serving as director of Scripps, Revelle and one of his researchers wrote the first modern scientific paper that linked carbon dioxide released in the air from the burning of fossil fuels and the greenhouse effect and the warming of temperatures. Well, this triggered an avalanche of research that eventually became the impetus behind the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change and the entire global warming movement. In the 1960s, Revelle moved to Harvard to establish a Center for Population Studies. This is where Professor Revelle encountered student Albert Gore. He involved Gore and his classmates in the tabulating of data from a carbon dioxide study. Gore was so impressed, he wrote about it in his 1992 book, Earth in the Balance. That became the story for the movie An Inconvenient Truth, the Oscar and the Nobel Peace Prize, and some people say $100 million all came from that. There is no doubt Roger Revelle had a major impact on Vice President Gore's life. But there's a twist. In 1988, Roger Revelle was having second thoughts about whether carbon dioxide was a significant greenhouse gas. He wrote letters to 2 congressmen about it. And in 1991, he co-authored a report for the new science magazine Cosmos, in which he expressed his strong doubts about global warming and urged more research before any remedial action was taken. At that point, Mr. Gore pronounced Revelle senile and refused to debate global warming. He continues to refuse to debate. Many offers of thousands of dollars have been made for debate. He refuses. Today, Gore sequestered the media at this event, and he set forth rules: no questions, no interviews. I have learned that in 1991, Roger Revelle made what was his final speech at the high-powered, very private summer enclave of powerful men and politicians at the Bohemian Grove in Northern California. There he apologized for his research, for sending so many people in the wrong direction on global warming, and he worried about the political fallout from the UN IPCC and Al Gore. A man named Don Michael Schmedman who lives in the San Francisco area, was there that day, and he remembers the Revelle speech very well. He has told me about it in some detail. So think of the irony. Today, Al Gore received the first Roger Revelle Award, honoring the man who sent him on his global warming campaign. But Revelle had realized that it was a false alarm and that the science was flawed before he died. Revelle died of a heart attack in 1991. It would be interesting to know that if he had lived, would he be approving of the award that was given tonight? Or perhaps would he be joining me at the International Conference of Global Warming Skeptics in New York next week? If you want to read the article on global warming that I have written, you can go to KUSI.com, click on Coleman's Corner.
John, this is really interesting. We haven't heard this information at all before.
Well, I've done a lot of digging over the last year to find all of this, and it really fascinated me when I stumbled across the Bohemian Grove speech. It's not documented anywhere.
This is the first time your orbits have crossed, you and Al Gore. You're both in the same city for 24 hours, and we couldn't get the two of you to meet.
Well, no, Mr. Gore, of course, was a former vice president. He's a man who got 52 million votes for president, served very honorably as a politician. I think he would have little regard for me.
But you'd like to debate him, wouldn't you?
Well, sure, I'd love to debate him, but you understand, this isn't political. I'm a journalist and a meteorologist. My interest is strictly in the science.
Thank you, John.
Thanks.
So that's the report. And I'm sure you're wondering, why haven't I heard all of this before? Why isn't the media full of it? Why do I keep hearing about global warming and its threat to our civilization? Well, it's $4.7 billion a year of our tax money, and that's the power of money. Now, everything I've had in this report is posted, including the complete interview with Dr. Singer. You only saw part of that interview. That complete interview and a lot of other material is posted on my Coleman's Corner website at KUSI.com, Coleman's Corner. Now, I would be delighted to have you look there. I'm also a regular reader of a site called What's Up With That, where my friend Anthony Watts hosts any number of skeptical papers on global warming. The research flows there on a daily basis. Now, what's going to defeat this global warming scare? I don't think it's like David and Goliath. I don't think we can defeat $4.7 billion, the Democrat Party, the United Nations, and the Sierra Club and the Wildlife Federation and all of them. They just claim that we're deniers and old goats, and they think we're bought and paid for by the big oil companies, which we are not. Don't have anything to do with them. But I don't think we can defeat them. You know what's going to defeat them? Time. A few more bitterly cold winters, a turn toward a colder climate. When the global warming fails to materialize in time, people will begin to believe. And I have noted that a recent Gallup poll shows that more and more people are saying global warming, that's not the big deal. We got a lot of big deals going on, employment, jobs, government too big, that sort of thing. The list of their concerns is very interesting. Those are on it. But global warming's down toward the bottom of the list. Thank you for watching this presentation. I'm John Coleman, and I'm always available. You can contact me by emailing to jcoleman at KUSI.com. Thank you and goodbye.